Hi guys, we're back. Great job so far. So in this video, we're going to create a couple of lists in our reference here, and we're going to use those lists essentially at some point to select a group and an event type, which will aggregate our charts up here. So if we want to compare these results down here with all groups, or just the U18, or just the U20, or just the training camp, or just the in-season, or all of them, we'll have opportunities to do that. And we're also going to create a unique list of dates so that we don't have to remember which dates there are in the data set. We can just select from a drop down or use a scroll bar of sorts, whatever suits you. And then we're going to play around with some conditional formatting. But before we do that, we're going to adjust a couple of calculations because I'm going to show you how what we've done can affect conditional formatting. It's kind of personal preference on how you want to go about it. So I'm going to go to my reference, and the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to copy this and paste it here, and let's call it date list. And we need a event list. And one more, we're going to do a group list. So luckily, we've already done this equation pretty much. We did it here to get a unique list of athlete names. I'm going to copy this. Actually, before I get into this, let's go through the unique strategy. Okay, so I'm just going to create a couple more columns here because honestly, the way that this is being done is not a good way to do it if you have an updated Excel version. So I just want to show you the updated way to do this. One of the reasons why, maybe I'll illustrate this now, is that the way that this list is sorted is based on our main data source. So if I sort this list, right now it's not sorted in any particular order. If I sort this list from Z to A, and I go back to my reference, that's how the athlete names are going to come out. And similarly with the date list, doing it this way, if the dates aren't sorted chronologically, then they're not going to be in the order that you pick from. And that's how the formulas work. But if you have an updated version, you can use something called unique. So I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to call this athlete list unique. The first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go equals unique. And now it's asking me, what do I want a unique list of? Well, I want a unique list of TBL underscore data. Or maybe profile is a better way to go, but let's just keep it consistent because they'll do the same thing with the date list. Table data, player. I want a unique list of my players. And I can close that off. Now this is pretty much the exact same thing. I think it automatically, we'll see what happens. I'm going to sort this by date now, oldest to newest. And maybe I'll sort this by participation status so that it's just mixing things up. Maybe I'll sort it by event, I don't know. And maybe position. Who knows? I just want to mix up the list. So now when I go into this reference, this is doing the same thing that this is doing. But at least with the unique, we have an opportunity to sort. So what I can do is I can simply add a sort here, and it'll automatically do ascending first if I do it this way. And you can sort on various different things, as you can see with the commands here. But if I just go sort like that and click enter, now my list is always going to be alphabetical. Notice that's not happening here, and that can't happen here. It's just the nature of the beast. So if you do have unique and sort, you can sort things automatically in a way that'll make your drop-down lists and your list orders and things like that a lot cleaner. But for the purpose of this, because we're going old school, we're going to use this formula. And when we do that, we have to make sure that two things are true. And I'll do that after this. But first, let's copy this formula that we have here. And let's paste that here. So now to get a unique date list, all we have to do is we have to change the table data player to date and table data player to date. And then just adjust this to be E1 to E1. And I'm going to click enter. And let's click here and let's format this as a short date. And I'm just going to drag this down. It doesn't really matter. At least we have enough for almost a year's worth of dates here, and I doubt that you're going to have a year's worth of testing. But now we have an opportunity to do that, but notice the dates are out of order. So 9/1/2018 is not the first date. So the only way to do this, and maybe I'll do unique one more time just because, just to show you another example, even though it works the exact same way, and then we're not going to do it again. So I'm going to copy and paste this formula here, and I'm going to change this to date. And when I do that, if I change it to a short date, we're going to get a chronological order of dates. And you can go the reverse way. You can kind of do it however you want, depending on how you treat that sort variable. But here, we can't do that. And what we need to do is we need to go to our data, and we need to sort it not only oldest to newest to figure out the date. So when we sort it oldest to newest and we go back to our reference, notice now the dates are at least the same, or in chronological order, but the athlete list didn't change. So we got to go back to our data and sort it by player name. And really, you don't really need to do a lot of sorting and stuff in this table once you have your dashboard organized, because all the sorting that you'll do in a table will probably be done in this table. That's the whole purpose. So now if we go back to our reference, now we'll have a list of athlete names that are ordered by alphabetically, and we'll have a date list that's ordered chronologically. Now for event and group lists, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to type in all first before we do our formula. So why I'm doing this is because if we select all from a drop-down menu, we'll have an opportunity to aggregate the data differently instead of just having to select from 2 events or 2 groups. So now I'm just going to copy our formula that we have for dates, or it could be for athlete names, doesn't matter. Maybe it makes more sense for athlete names because it's not formatted as a date. And let's put that there, and let's change player to, I think, am I on an event type, and we'll change player to event type in our table, so that's what we're looking for. And we need to change this to be I2 to I2, and click enter. And now again, if I drag this down, how many event types are you going to have? Probably not this many, but here are all of our event types, and we have now room for 28 of them. But one thing that if this is not working for you, let me be clear about this. You might need to hold down Control, Shift, and Enter when entering in this formula before you drag it down. So I'm going to do it that way too. So when I'm in the formula, before entering it, I'm going to hold down Control, Shift, or Command Shift if you're on a Mac, and click Enter. And you'll know that you did that right if you see squiggly brackets on either side of the formula. And then drag it down. And every cell that the formula is in will have those squiggly brackets in it. So if this is not working for you without the squiggly brackets, hold down Control Shift Enter or Command Shift Enter, and it should work. I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and now again I'm going to do the same thing. Instead of event type, let's make this a group, or whatever it is in our table, which is group, and let's make this group. And again, we're going to change I2 here to be K2. So K2 to K2. I'm going to click enter, or maybe I'll click Control Shift Enter just so it's the same and you know what it looks like. And if I drag this down, now all my groups will be here. And these things update automatically. So if I go to, I don't know, they update based on my data table. So if I go in here, I'm just going to add another record, and maybe I'll add a new person too. I got to remember to delete this. Let's go Frank Smith. Let's add a new date. Maybe it's 5/5/2020, and let's say the session type is, I don't know, off season, and let's give them a group U25. I don't know, and it doesn't matter what other data is in here. But if I go back to my reference now, we have off season, we have U25 group, and we have that date 5/5/5/5, which is unordered. Remember, this is kind of based on where we place things. So it is what it is, unless you're using this unique formula and sorting things, which you can do. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to delete Frank. Oh, I should also say that if I go to my reference sheet, we should see there's Frank Smith in this list, and he should be ordered alphabetically in this one. There he is, right after Forrest Gump. So, I don't know if I spelled Forrest right, but anyways, I'm going to delete this now, and it works the same way. If you delete people from this, then if I go back here, Frank Smith is no longer here, and Frank Smith is no longer where he was here, and the date 5/5 is gone, and off-season is gone, and U25 is gone. So that's going to be good for our drop-down list because we won't have extraneous information in them. Now let's talk about conditional formatting a little bit, and let's focus on counter movement jumps. Okay, I'm going to open this up because this is what we did last time. Now let's look at counter movement jumps. And conditional formatting has a lot of options. It can be overwhelming, and it's just unlimited pretty much. So, because you can write your own formulae, and that's what I like to do. So the first thing that I'm going to do, or probably the easiest thing to see your data, is select all this and set it to a data color scale. So I'm going to go to conditional formatting, and you can go to color scales and choose it from here or whatnot. And maybe we do it that way first. Now this is showing that green is better, or green is a higher number. I can do that, and that's great. Now, when we look at this, there's a lot of green and not a lot of red, even though, let's go to our manage rules. I'm going to double click on this. It shows me the cells that it applies to and the scale. So the lowest value is red, the middle is pretty much yellow, and the highest value is green. Now, why is there not a lot of red? Well, that's because it's based on the lowest value and goes to the 50th percentile between these two colors. And when I go here, we got a value of 0. And this may be important to you, it might not, but what we know, or what I know, is that someone that did not jump is going to get a value of 0. And that's true pretty much across all these metrics, aside from the asymmetry metrics. I know that they did not perform the test. And if I don't want this color scale to be dictated by someone that did not perform a test, well, we can account for that either here, but I like to do it in the database, which is in our data table. So let's go back to CMJ best, which is one of the variables that we're using. Right now we're taking the maximum of these 3 trials. So these 3 trials, if it's blank, it's going to give me a 0. And we can see that if I go from smallest to largest, let's say, and I'm messing with the formatting here. It'll give me 0. Now how do we correct for this if these are blank? The way that I do it, or the quickest and easiest way to do it, so I'm going to say if CMJ trial 1, they need a trial 1 if they're going to have a trial 2 and a trial 3, equals blank. If that equals blank, then comma, let's make this blank, comma. But if not, if that's false, if this is not blank, then let's get the maximum of those 3 trials, and we can close that off. I'll click enter. Now, zeros are blank, and if I go back to my team plan, now we see a lot of red. That's because this value is no longer 0, so the scale is altered to reflect the values in the data set that are essentially not 0 or not blank. So let me do this for the rest of them. I'm going to do this for the rest of the power metrics, but and then in a later video I'll do it for the other ones. And you can do it for the ones that are included in your data sets, but for me I'm just going to do the ones that are included in mine, which are broad jump. So if I go if broad jump trial 1 equals blank, then comma blank, comma, if not, then let's get the maximum of those 2 trials, and let's close the parenthesis and click enter. Now that's gone. Now Wingate peak power too. So if Wingate peak power is blank, so if that equals blank, then let's make it blank, comma, but if not, let's do our calculation to get it per kg body weight. And let's close the parenthesis and click enter. And I guess I might as well do this if I see any other zeros here. Now we have no test there. Might as well do it here. I'm just going to do this a couple times. So if it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. If Wingate mean power equals blank, comma, blank, And if not, we're going to do our calculation. Click enter, and we'll do the same thing with y balance, and you can do this however you want. I'm going to say if y balance anterior equals blank, comma blank, comma if not, then let's do that. Let's get that sum. Now we have zeros gone, and we'll do the same thing here. If right, the first right one equals blank, comma blank, and if not, comma, let's do a sum of this. Enter. And I don't know if there's anything else. Yeah, we already did no test for those things. Oh, 2 lap times. This is fine because these are our scores, and we're not showing our scores in our panel. But if you were showing your scores, you would probably do the same thing. Like so, I'll just do one for pull-ups, for example. Oh no, never mind. But that's okay. I'm not going to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that either. So this is a little bit of a longer one just because there are more trials, but the same thing applies. So we're going to say if. So if someone doesn't skate the first trial of the on ice 2 lap test equals blank, if that's blank, then they didn't do the other ones. So I'm going to make that blank. And if they did, or if it's not blank, then they did skate. So I'm going to close the parenthesis there and click enter. And now again, all the zeros are removed. And we'll do the same thing here. So if this equals blank, then blank, comma, if not, then we're getting the maximum. That's the maximum time. Click enter. So it looks so far for all of our actual metrics, we've accommodated for them in some way that does not include zeros. I'm going to sort this back into, I don't even remember what it was. I think it was name. I don't know what I sorted it by. But in any case, now if we go back to our reference or our team plan, and we look at the other power metrics, this person had zeros, now they're blanks. Now, let's go back and let's manage this rule, because there are lots of things that we could do. Manage rules, double click on this. This is the rule that we're thinking of. It doesn't have to be based on a lowest value. It can be based on a number. It can be based on a number, a percentage, or just a formula, which could be a cell that you're referencing somewhere else. Doesn't really matter. So if we do 3 numbers, let's say anything over 30 is green, anything under 20 is red, and then maybe we put the midline number at like 28, and that'll make it not a lot of yellow to green, but let's do that. Let's apply it. Now what happened is our color scale completely changed. And that's fine if that's what you want. The way that I like to do things is very different. But we'll go through that in a second. I like to use formulae. But before we do that, let's go to our manage rules. Let's go back into here, and you can change colors, right? Like maybe you want this to be blue to gray to, I don't know, red, who knows. That's your color scheme, and you can apply it and it'll change. So you can also change it to a 2-color scale. You can use data bars, which I'll just click OK and apply it, and it just fills up. I'm going to delete this rule now. Apply. Okay, and let's show some other things. So this is just a general overview, but if you go to the new rule area, you can see you can format cells on all those scales that we just went over. You can format only cells that contain certain things, like a cell value between 2 numbers, or these can even be cells, so you can select one cell and select another cell, and whatever values those cells are in. It'll determine the formatting, and the way that you determine the formatting is if you go to format, and you can manipulate the text, being bold, regular, whatever. The fill, let's say we want it to be filled green, this colored green, if the value is between 20 and 30. And we can click enter, and it'll do that. It'll apply whatever formatting we set. I'm going to undo that and go back to the new rules. And there are lots of options here. We can say cell between, not between, equal to, greater than, less than. You can do specific text. You can do blanks, not blanks, errors. You can do top and bottom values, the top 10, the bottom 10, percentage, top 10%, bottom 10%, bottom 50%. You can do whatever you want. You do above or below the average of a range that you selected. So in this case, if I selected all this stuff and I said I want to format everything that's below the average for that range, then I can do that. Unique or duplicate values, but what I like to do is I like to do formulae. And this is a little bit more complex, but it coincides with the way that we set up our database or our scoring system. So the reason why is because we could do like, all right, let's say that we said we wanted, this is easier, but if we have multiple groups, it won't work. If we say we want cell value greater than, and I'm going to go to my category here, greater than the maximum value, which is right here, which is based on what, like our cutoff picker, whether it's arbitrary, standard deviation, etc. And if it is arbitrary, the scores that we set or the cutoffs that we set, that's fine. But what about the group? We might have, if we have different categories for different groups or different thresholds for different groups, then that's not going to work because it's going to apply to everyone in here. So we need to consider the group if that's something that we want to do, or consider the positional group if that's something that if we want to have different colors for different groupings. So the way that we go about that is that we can write a formula. So I'm going to show you something here, and I'm going to show you why I don't do this. Is we can do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to go conditional formatting, new rule. And if I go to the formula cell, I can do like equals if, but when I start typing that, Excel doesn't help. So you need to know what formula you're going to use before you do this. Or if you're really good at Excel and you're really well versed, then you can do it from scratch if you know what you're doing. I personally, especially when formulas are kind of complex, I don't. So what I like to do is I like to do formulas elsewhere. And the way that conditional formatting works is that it only accepts true and false values, because you're saying you want to format something if something's true, and don't format it if it's not true. So it's all based on Boolean logic when you're writing formulae. And what we're going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to write formulae here, and we're going to see what's true and what's not. And that'll, when we have a formula in Excel that Excel helps us with, then we can apply that in our conditional formatting. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to go equals if, and, because I want two things to be true, is I want the group that this person's in. When I say this group, I can't use the table reference, I don't think. You have to use the actual cell that it's in. So D12, if D12, but at the same time, I want this group to stay the same when I paste this conditional formatting across different areas. So I want the letter D to be locked in. But when I paste this formula or formatting to other cells beneath, I want the number to change because I want to look at the group for each person, if that makes sense. So I want that to be relative. So if that group equals, I'm going to go to my score panel, select this group, U18, and I'm going to lock this one in totally. The reason why I'm doing that is because it doesn't matter which metric I pick. We only have two groups, and if I know which is which, then it doesn't really matter. If we had a bunch of different groups, then I might not do this. But so if the group is the U18 group, and also, that's what I did with the comma, and also the CMJ value, which again, I'm not going to use the table reference, it's H12. And again, I'm going to lock in the H for now, because Excel conditional formatting works the exact same way that Excel formulae work. So if you lock in certain cells in your conditional formatting, they're going to be locked in the formatting itself. So if I were to lock in H12 totally, then the formatting would only adjust based on 23.5. So let's say that well, you'll see what I mean in a second. So when H12 equals, or sorry, is greater than, let's go to the score panel, and let's go down to our max value. Our max value of CMJ for the U18 group. So when that's true, and I'm going to lock this in for now. And when those two things are true, close the parenthesis, comma, let's go true, comma, false. So remember, it has to be true or false. I'm going to click enter. Now for this person, it's false. They're either not in the U18 group or the CMJ is not greater than the max value. Now, if I were to lock in this H12 cell, then it would only it would say true whenever anyone's value is greater than 23, or whenever 23.5 is greater than this and the person's in the U18 group, which is not what we want. We want the value associated with each person. We want to know whether that is greater than the max value. So I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to drag this formula down all the way to the bottom. So now we're going to see trues and falses, and we know that the max value right now is 30. So if I go across here, first of all, the person has to be in the U18 group, which this person is, and the value has to be greater than 30, and this is. What about this guy? It's greater than 30, and they're in the U18 group. Now a guy that is not in the U18 group, like this guy, but has a value greater than 30, should have a false, and they do. So what I'm going to do quickly here is I'm just going to highlight all this, or maybe I'll just do one, and I'll do formatting new, and you don't have to do this. This is just to show you equal if this, not AE12 locked in, but AE12, so that the cell that the formatting moves when I move. If A12 equals true, comma, true, comma, false, and let's just make this yellow. I'm going to click enter. And I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste the formatting down across all these cells. So I should have just, let's paste the formatting. So now all the trues will be yellow. And that's just for example. Because what we're going to do now is I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and I'm going to say if and D12 is equal to not D3, but I want to set my formatting for the U20 group. So instead of D3, let's figure out what that is. That's going to be G3, because we're looking at the group that the person's in and comparing it to whatever's in here. And then for the max value, we're looking at this value now, which is H18. So G3 and H18 are going to change. So instead of E18, we're going to look at H18 if it's greater than that number, and instead of D3, we're going to look at G3. I'm going to click enter. Now I'm going to drag this down. Now we should see only true if someone's, well, this person is an anomaly, and we can deal with blanks too in our conditional formatting. But notice nobody, if I sort this from largest to smallest, nobody has a value greater than 37. If I go to my score panel, that's the value where it needs to be true. And if I set this arbitrary value, right now it's set on arbitrary. If I set it on standard deviation, it'll be something else. And if I set it on min max, it'll be something else. So let's stay on arbitrary, and let's change our cutoff value for arbitrary to be 31. And I'll click enter. Now all of our scores are going to change too, and all that fun stuff that we did earlier. But now the value, the max value, based on what we set, changed to 31. And if I go to my team plan, now notice what happened here. We got a lot more trues. So let's go look. This person's in the U20 group, and they have a value greater than 31. So does this person. And then this person does too, but they're in the, this person does too, but they're in the U18 group. So that's not true for them, because we have two pieces of criteria. Now you're like, where is all this going? I'll show you where all this is going. So I'm going to select all this stuff, and I'm going to put in a new rule. But actually, so the first rule that I'm going to put in, and I usually do this, is when a cell value, or when there's a blank, I don't want any format. I always do that first, so that this person, even if it is true, they're not going to be formatted. Click enter. Or maybe I want it to be red or something to indicate that they were hurt. I don't know, because that person is out. But for now, it's just going to be blank. Click enter. Now, if I go to my manage rules, all these cells have one rule. If it's blank, then don't do anything. And what I can do here is if I say stop if true, and it's the first one in the list, then no matter what, if it's blank, it's just going to not do anything, regardless of what my other formulae say. So I'll apply that. It won't do anything for now, but when I add my new rules, it will. So now let's do another rule. Let's copy what we have here. We worked hard and did this. And it works. We noticed that with the formula here. Let's select everything again. Let's go to Manage Rules and New Rule. And I'm going to type in my formula, just like it is there. And now, what this is going to say is if the person's in the U18 group and their jump height is greater than the max height set from our score set, then how do we want to color it? Maybe I want this one to be dark blue and the font, I want it to be bold because these are like, these are really good people here. And I want the font, and I want the font color to be white. If I click OK, it'll give me kind of a preview of what that looks like. And I'll click OK. So now everyone in the U18 group, or everyone that's true in this column, will be big, bold, and dark blue. Now, what I can do is I can do the same thing that I did here. I'm going to copy this, select all these cells, and I'm going to do a new rule. And I'm going to go to my formulae, and I'm going to paste that in. Remember, this is for the U20 group. And maybe, the colors are different. So I want this to be white and bold, and I want the background color to be gold. These are my colors that I use for the best performers in each group, let's say. And then I'm going to click OK and click OK. Let me just go to Manage Rules here. This needs to be at the top. So let's bring that up and then click Apply. Now that cell will stay blank. Click Enter. So now what we've done is we've just highlighted our best performers. And if this is set up A to Z, now we have certain criteria. And if you have certain thresholds, you can set up those thresholds anywhere you want, like per group. For example, maybe you have a sheet. I'm not going to do this, but we have a sheet called Legend. I don't know. And you have, okay, U18, U20, and then you have like kind of a metric. Maybe it's CMJ, it's PROJ. And maybe you have certain criteria that you care about, where it's, all right, so if someone's above 32 in each of these, they're a certain color. If they're, let's bring this down, if they're between, let's say, CMG best, CMG moderate, CMG needs improvement, right, or something. You might have 32, and anyone between 28 and 32 is moderate, or anyone between 31.99 and 28.99 is moderate, and anyone that is below 28.99 needs improvement. So then you can refer to these cells for your conditional formatting in your criteria, and if you were to change these thresholds, then your conditional formatting would change. So you're like, oh, you know what? Actually, I really, for this group, needs improvement is anyone that's less than 30.99, and anyone that's between 32.99 and 35 is moderate, and anyone greater than 35 is what I want colored a certain way. Then you can do that. And what you may have is you may have a row in between here, and just so you know, like, all right, that's dark blue. This one's gold. This one's maybe I don't know. It's a lighter version of that. This is maybe a lighter version of that, and then this is I don't know. Maybe both of these are red. I don't know. So that's one way to do it. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it probably in a little bit of a different way. I wanted to show you how this works and how you can format things. But I probably wouldn't do it this way. Like, I don't care that much about the groups personally. So, but if you do, then that may be relevant and you know how to do this. But my favorite way to do it is I'm just going to use the all. So I'm going to go to the CMJ. Actually, you know what? No, let's keep it. Let's keep it. And I'm gonna close this off because we're just right now we're kind of concerned with these scores, and I'm gonna use some sort of score criteria here with the data bars. So I'm gonna set thresholds for what I want. Let's go here. I'm gonna go to File or Formatting, New Rule. And I'm probably going to change this, but it'll give you an idea of how to do it quickly based on certain things. So I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-color scale. Again, I don't know what my colors are going to be, but say gold is based on a number that I decide is, I don't know, anyone over 80 is gold. Anybody, well, the midpoint might be, so what's in 50, 60, and anyone below a 40, I'm concerned with that. So maybe it goes from red here, and this is like a just a gray, a neutral color. And if I click enter, this is kind of our scale. So we can kind of quickly see who's in the middle, who do I not care about, and who's kind of on either end of the spectrum. And maybe I copy this, and I want to do the same thing here. So I'm really just I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna paste it here. Paste the formatting. I'm gonna go to the strength and paste the formatting. And go here and paste the formatting. And go here, paste the formatting. And go here and paste the formatting. Now, at least I'm consistent, and I can quickly see where someone is strong and where they're weak. And maybe I have these scores, for example, are different than the overall score. Right now, it's a little bit inconsistent in that these scores can be higher based on the criteria I have set. So maybe I just maybe I organize this a little bit better, where in the overall score, if I go to Manage Rules, I'm going to see the scores for everything, because I'm in this table. If I go to my current selection, I'll just see what I have selected, and maybe I change this to be, who knows, let's go 70, 50, 30, I don't know. Or maybe it still goes, maybe it goes 70, I don't know, 40, 55, 70. Click enter, apply that. Now it's just a little bit different. But I can quickly see, wow, all right, this guy's good at a lot of stuff, but he's not great at conditioning. And this guy's bad at a lot of stuff, but you know what, he's actually okay at strength, based on his scores. So I hope this was helpful for you. I'm going to delete these rules now. And in the next couple videos, I might change the way that this looks, but oops, I shouldn't have done that. I don't want to do that. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. There's nothing in there. In the next couple videos, I might organize this a little bit differently, color things a little bit differently. But I hope this is helpful, and I'll do the rest of the conditional formatting in the next video. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.